Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, it's another episode of Someone You Should Know, and whether you're joining us when we launch on a Wednesday morning or you're just watching the program at your leisure whenever you choose, glad to have you with us. We are brought to you today by our good friends over at No Sweat Air Conditioning, Heating and Air Conditioning, No Sweat Experts. You know, we are in the northern Texas area. That's the only area that they're in, but we are getting ready to kind of switch over from that summer the winter doldrums into the spring summer. Now's the time to reach out to No Sweat Experts to have them come out and check your system to make sure you are ready to go for the spring and summer season. The filters are all changed and you're ready for the change because we're going to go from the cold to the heat pretty soon. No Sweat Experts. They're good people and they're timely and they are very, very affordable too. Well, today is going to be a subject that I really do enjoy talking about because I think I am probably part of a group of people that is not afraid to get into a conversation about racism. And I have invited someone who has quickly become a good friend to discuss racism, and that's Mike Easterling.
Hello,
Mike, welcome.
How are you, everyone?
Good, great to have you on the show. You know, Mike, it's an age-old topic that just seems to go on and on and on, and we, as a society, have a hard time wrapping our arms around it and understanding what it's all about. So right at the get-go, you have spent a career in the broadcasting business.
Mm-hmm.
You are now, am I correct? You're launching a stand-up comedy career now?
No, I'm through with that. I'm through with that.
Oh, you're beyond comedy. You're getting serious.
That, yeah. Oh yeah, get out there and drudge. It was fun, but it was like one of those things I sort of did to get it off my bucket list. You know.
Although we're going to talk a little bit about a podcast that you do with your brother, and I've listened to several episodes, and you get into some comedic stuff there too.
Yeah, we keep it light. I try to keep it light.
Yeah. Well, Mike, you are always been passionate about racism, especially racism in America, and to get started in our conversation, I want you from your seat to tell the people that are watching and listening, what is racism to you and what is racism in America?
Good question. For me, and I would say for many Black people, maybe especially Black men, it is a second layer, a second society, a second consciousness that we live with. And we're taught that we have to live with this. Silly people like Cruz, our parents teach us racism, but they just like they teach you not how to cross, just like they teach you how to cross the street, they teach you that the world that you're going into isn't always going to be one that favors you. And I learned that at 4 years old. I didn't, that's how long I've been carrying around that. Most kids do, or at least by the time they get to school, they begin to see, hey, that's not fair. But you can't really articulate. You just keep looking around like, why is this happening? And then you go to your parents and you bring it up and you have the talk with your kids about this is how your life is going to be.
Well, you say the talk. How was it for you to sit down and have that talk with your parents about what you were going to be faced with as you got older, year after year?
Great question. And the fact that this is a society that I won't say is totally racist, but it's based on race, okay, built on race, tied to race through money, okay. You have to bring those facts to your children. I lived in Harlem. As a little boy born in Harlem. lived up on Sugar Hill with my mom. And then we moved to Brooklyn, and it was brand new. We were in the projects, but it didn't seem like the projects to us. They were like, hey, this is a great place to live. They were putting in trees still. That's how new it worked. I can remember this like it.
Oops. I think we may have lost Mike. We'll try and get it reestablished. You there, Christine?
We did lose him, but I think he'll be back soon. So we'll
Okay.
hang out for a minute, and if we need to reschedule, we can. When he comes
Okay.
back, I'll just bring him back on the screen and edit this part out. So we're all good. We'll just wait till he shows back up.
All right. I jotted down about 5:55 into the show. He dropped out.
Yeah, we'll just give him a couple minutes to see if he can pop back in. And I know we've already had to reschedule him as it was. I hate to do that again. Here we go.
I'm back. I don't know what happened.
You're back. Yay. Okay. I'll pull out. We'll
just
just go ahead and delete this part out. Y'all just continue on like nothing happened. We're all good.
I don't know. I was just sitting here. It disappeared, but I just came back in the regular door. Sitting there. So we're sitting there in the dirt, kids playing with dirt. Little girl says, I'm having a birthday party. And you can come and you can come and you can come. And she didn't point at me. So I'm like, well, what about me? And she says, oh, you can't come. You're colored. And my little 4-year-old mind goes, I know that. I mean, I know what color my skin is. What's that got to do with anything? And that's when I went and told my mom about it. I don't know if my grandmother was there too. And then I told my dad, told everybody about it, because I think I told my mom and she told other people, and they began to come and counsel me. And she gave me twice as hard. Sometimes you get half as much. That's why we're always, after you go to school. I'm 4 years old. Are you going to go to college? Had no idea what that meant. That's the way you get past it. Then they gave me the old line that I've given my children, they'll probably give their children, is things are going to get better, but I won't live to see it. Okay. And my father said that, and he was right. And I'm probably going to be right. Though things are better. Things won't get to be fair or equal in my lifetime, but things are better. To say things aren't better is to overstate the situation. Things are better. Well, and so from there, so that's kind of where I first learned that this is how it's going to have to live.
Yeah, but is it fair to say, Mike, that things get better if you make them better? If you have to be proactive in making them better instead of just accepting what is as the norm?
Well, see, that's a great point. It depends. You're correct. But what happens is it depends on how this race situation is sold to you at an early age, whether you're black or white. If it's sold to you the way my parents sold it to me, thank you. But I just told you, this is it. You're gonna have to work twice as hard. Things don't always be fair. But you must find a way. That can't be an excuse. You're smart. I can remember, Michael, you're smart enough to figure that out, little guy. If your parents say to you, you're never going to get anywhere because white man going to keep you down, you're always going to be now you're a victim. So right. That's what you're learning. So if you fail at something, you right away figure it must be them. Couldn't be you didn't study. Okay. And so we weren't allowed to have that. We were certainly known as racist. My parents were going to be naive and blow smoke up our parents' leg. But you can't make that an excuse. You got to find a way. That fair? Probably not. Is that real? Yes.
Yeah.
So that was when I was a little kid.
You said you grew up in Harlem and then in Brooklyn. Were all through your childhood? Were you basically in a predominantly black neighborhood?
Actually, no. I'm a military kid, and
okay.
And I tell people when they, I'm still an old guy on some of the dating sites. Sometimes you meet these ladies and they go, "Tell me about you." I'm like, I'm not an off-the-shelf kind of brother. I'm not just a regular Joe. I've been blessed with, lived in Harlem for like my first 4 years, and I lived in the projects in Brooklyn. That's when I first began to meet white children and interact with white children. Before then, I was a little guy. I just saw them wherever my parents took me. They were there, and I was always taught to be, courteous. But then I began to meet other kids, and that's how I began to realize, well, geez, I'm getting A's. He's getting C's, and he's white. What's going on here? You can do better. So that went into my mind. My dad went to Tokyo. He's in the Air Force. We went along with him, and it was great for me looking back, because at 10 years old, I was a foreigner for the first time. Not visiting, not stopping by, not getting off of the cruise ship and getting back on. I lived there from age 10 to age 13. Impressive years. We're talking less than 20 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I was there as a little boy. And so I realized that there's a whole other culture of people who get up every day and don't think one thing about America. They get up and they go and they do their business, and they're proud of it. And I was able to pick that up early. I'm always been kind of a people person. And so when I returned, I realized there's a lot of things that we don't know about how other people live. But what I do know is it's always the same. They had certain meal times, they had certain customs. They went to school. They all wore, not all, most of them wore uniforms. We didn't.
You're right.
It was the same. We played with one another. They wanted to do the same thing: play ball, climb in the junkyard, ride your bikes down the Japanese market and get fireworks. We couldn't hardly speak English. They knew a few words of English. I knew a few words of Japanese, but we were all the same. We just wanted to play and hang out like 10, 12-year-old kids do. That stuck in my mind. And I'm very defensive to Asian people. Among my friends, they're black people. If I say black people in my book, they're not without bias either. I had a friend who said, let's go to the Chink store, Korean store on the corner. I knew what he meant. I was like, what? The Chink store. So I don't know what you're talking about. So store right there. I said, oh, you mean Mr. So-and-so store. So they came back and said, man, if we're going to hang out and be friends, you can't talk like that. But that's what we call it all the time, the Chink store.
Yeah. Got to learn the street lingo.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's not, it's just a Korean store, Mr. Park store, You wouldn't like it if they call it the nigger store. You'd have a big problem about it. Well, that's different. What's different about it? And they couldn't articulate what was different, but it was okay for them to say Shink store. But I know these people not like anybody to say the N store. So, but that taught me a lot. I then returned and went to a high school where I was the only black kid for 4 years, not in my class, in the whole school. Great experience.
Wow.
It opened my eyes to the fact that, to answer your other question, so I've always been in integrated situations. Okay, I've never been, the first time I was in an all black situation, first time I ever had a black teacher was when I went to Howard University in 1965. So most of my life I've been in integrated situations, Catholic school in Brooklyn, integrated schools, which was integrated schools in the military, of course, and then back to Carroll High School. And that was it was an eye-opening experience, but not in a negative way. Those 4 years were pretty good.
We often hear the word bigot, and bigotry. How do you define the difference, or is there a difference between bigotry and racism?
Oh, absolutely. Bigotry is kind of let me go the other way around. Racism is a situation where one race can really have dominance over another, enforce your behavior by asking you to conform to the way they are. Example, and it changes with pressure. There was a time, let's say 15, 20 years ago, that flight attendants and were not allowed, or teachers some of the places, were not allowed to wear natural hair locks, dreads, etc. They had to have a regular, whatever that is, hairstyle. It was in the rules. Of course, there was protests, pushback, and now you see people, doctors, lawyers, with those hairdos, okay, and there's no pushback. The one thing so I guess I'm saying there is that's what racism is. Racism is when, and it could be the other way, when your feelings toward me can impact my life. If I say, I don't like white people, I don't like, they're like, so good for you. There's nothing about me feeling that way that can change how you guys live, how white people live? Nothing. But if white people don't like black people, there are ways that they can impact how we live. And so sometimes you see people, they say they sold out, they did whatever. You see people trying to sort of downplay their blackness and move for their sake to move toward the more general way that America lives. And I'm somewhere in the middle there. I don't embrace everything black because everything black isn't always right. My people right or wrong. No, I'm not a my people right or wrong guy. Okay, because sometimes my people are wrong. Bigotry is one. White people are the devil. These things I heard growing up. White people are the devil. Okay, that's not true. All white people hate all black people. Again, not true.
Right.
Okay. Bigotry. I learned bigotry as a child. I learned anti-Semitism as a child. Jews only love money. All they want is money. They'll kill you for money. I heard that as a child. I had to unlearn and relearn that. So I know black people kill you for money too. I know black people do all they want is money. And a very kind, my good friend Stan Berman is gone. Great guy. He and I worked at GE, the first black and the first Jewish American to work in the General Electric lamp sales division. They used to call that the Aryan division. And he and I were there today. People named like McCoy and O'Reilly and those German and Irish names. That's who was in that division until the two of us came. So yeah, we can be bigots, we can have prejudice, we can block people just because we can think that, well, basketball belongs to us. White black folks have a very hard thing about basketball. They hate to see a white ball player that's really good. So yeah, we're bigots. We can be bigots.
It's amazing. Now your background was in television. What did you do in the television industry?
I worked first I was very fortunate. Worked at WGBH TV, which is the flagship of PBS up in Boston. I was living in Boston. Went there after I left school, and I got to get unplugged from my alma mater, Howard University. When I left Howard, I went to Boston, worked for GE, and fraternity brother was going to the Harvard B School, leaving his job at WGBH TV. Didn't really know the guy, just met him at a little party they had, going away party for him. And I said, is the job open? They said, yeah, and I applied for it, and I got it. And so I worked there for 5 years. Then I moved to WJZ in Baltimore, and worked there for 17 years. It was an affiliate of ABC when I got there. When I left, it was owned and operated, and TV station, which why many of us left. The business began to change. But it was a great time. I won one Iris Award. It's on my shelf back there. And had the highest rating on the show called Evening Magazine. You probably grew up with remember PM Magazine, what it was called.
Mm-hmm. Right.
First and only black executive producer of that show. Something that's prideful and shameful at the same time. That only one in all those time, but that was me. Fortunate. And then from then I retired from that and did some of my own projects, including some corporate training.
Do you feel that your career in broadcasting gave you that ability to be able to cross those multicultural lines in your dealings in broadcasting, and that helped to really kind of set a foundation under you for being more in touch with a multicultural society?
I think that was part of it, but I think going even back when I was growing up I was lucky to be in a place like Brooklyn, when I lived there, Barbra Streisand, Woody Allen. It's just a great place, different background people. And that's where I think I picked it up. Also, because when I was there, I met kids from Poland, Lithuania. Because I live right down by the East River. I remember asking to my mom one time, I said, Mom, where are we from? We're from North Carolina. I'm like, no. Like, so-and-so, he's from Hungary, and these kids would meet their grandmothers after school to walk them home. And they immediately start speaking Hungarian or Lithuanian or Italian to their parents. And they were just talking English to me. That fascinated me. Like, how do they do that? I said, Mom, where are we from? North Carolina. I'm like, no. But like, what's the old country? Where's our old country? Kids talk about the old country. And she's like, quit asking me so many questions. And I knew then there's something more to there's something to this being black thing. You know, because my mom is yelling at me, which means she doesn't know or she doesn't want to explain it to me. So that's
So
what helped me.
what then what does the term African American mean to you? Because we hear that and it bothers me because I have been fortunate to interact with a lot of people from all over the world, and my wife and I spent 20 years in South Florida, and we interacted with a lot of people of color, but they were from the Caribbean, they were from South and Central America, they were from all over the world, but we had this thing about it was maybe not culturally right to call people black. You called them African Americans to be politically correct, but I never saw that as a politically correct statement. What do you say on that?
That is great. There's so many different schools of thought of that. Some people don't want to be like, I know Smokey Robinson doesn't want to be called the great Smokey Robinson, doesn't want to be called African American. That term worked a generation ago, but now there are a lot of people who can be considered African Americans that are truly Africans in America. Barack Obama, okay. My son's good buddy's last name is Odocha. Okay, he was born here, but his dad wasn't. Okay, but his dad is now a citizen. So in my mind, the kid is an African American, but his dad is an African in America. Okay, he came here. He wasn't born here. He wasn't culture. He didn't learn his culture here. This is a second culture for him. I like this. So I use the term African American, but there's so many kinds of people. I use black to define everybody. For me, black is African, Jamaican, West Indian. Those are all black people. Then they break down to their nationality. I'm an American. I'm an American first. Have good buddies and we debate this, and I just will not relent. They're like, nah, man, I want to present myself as a black man who happens to be an American. And I disagree. I said, no, I'm an American who happens to be black. We good friends, but we did on that, okay? I'm like, because that's how I want people to see. You can't tell me to treat me like everybody else and give myself a name that's a little bit different. So I'm an American first, military kid. My sons were both military guys. My sister's military. We had the flag at our house. We used to answer the phone. Sergeant Easterling's quarters. We're Americans first. Okay. I didn't really become a black American, and I'm glad I did, until I went to Howard University. And for the first time was immersed totally in my own culture. And it was super rewarding. So I've got a balance. I'm pretty much at home speaking and communicating with either the two.
I remember once going to a conference with a gentleman from South Africa, and he was as white as I am, and he stood up and he introduced himself as an African American, and a lot of eyes kind of, no, you don't, you're too light to be African American, and he went on to say, I can say I'm an African American because my roots are in Africa. Mm-hmm. So just as we have said in our conversations and all, it's a matter of perception. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
It is kind of, and it isn't. Really deep inside to me. Okay, let's say there's I'm standing next to one of my friends who's of Jamaican ancestry. Okay, he came here with his parents, and he's first generation American, as they call themselves, Jamericans. Okay, those from Jamaica. Okay,
I like that.
Jamaican. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. I'm everything all right, but I'm more in my mind of an African American than he is. Why? Because I'm a slave descendant. I'm a descendant of slaves. I'm a descendant of people who built this. My parents are both North Carolinians. Okay. My mother's side, there's an old house that was left to my, I guess, double great grandmother. Yeah. After the person who lived there died. My grandmother is half white and my great grandmother, half white and half black. So I'm a real African American. Okay. I was here before my folks were here. My roots were being set down before the people came to Ellis Island and before my good brother came from Jamaica. Okay. So that's how when you talk about African Americans, I always think about those of us who are descendants of those who built this country.
You state, and at this point, I want, again, folks, there's a Facebook page that'll scroll across the screen, and you can reach out to Mike if you have questions and get to know this man. He's very, very easy to talk with. He has recently written a book, Everything Isn't Racism. It's a great read. I thank you very, very much for my autographed copy.
You're welcome.
And there are a lot of little things that you bring up in the book that's very interesting to me. One of the quotes that you have in the book is that multiculturalism isn't inevitable, or it is inevitable, and it's unreversible. And that just resonated with me, because the more we want to say, let's turn the clock back, it ain't going to ever happen. The only way forward is to move forward. And the only way to really understand cultural differences is to sit down and talk about it.
Exactly. You can't talk at people. This book, I'm not a sociologist. I don't have a doctorate in this. I'm just a person who's lived this life for over 70 years. And that's why it's an easy read. Thank you. Exactly. All I'm saying is look at some of these different little conversations that you can have, not only with Black friends, with your white friends as well. Conversations. I made it blame-free conversations. Many times the conversations get to you people. And once you guys were, and now we're finished. Now we're done. And I'm never going to talk to him. I try to talk to these people, and if you're going to attack me and I try to, point out, look at some of these conversations. You can just make it a conversation. Once you get into a defensive posture, nobody learns anything because everybody's deflecting. Nothing is getting in. So I think we can sit down and talk about. I don't know. I've lived it. I've lived being the only person in my high school. I live in Mason, Ohio, not a Black town at all. I'd rather live in an integrated town than a predominantly Black town. Though I love my predominantly Black university, and I love my fraternity, predominantly Black Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Great members, Steve Harvey and other great people, Shaq O'Neal. I love all that, but I like living with everybody. I don't want to work out every day and just see my folks. Maybe that's my upbringing. I'm sure it's a part of my upbringing.
Right. And if you're willing to put yourself out there, you probably will come back with a lot more positive than negative. And it's okay to disagree, and you and I could sit down and have a conversation. I'm sure that there are things that you might see differently than me.
I hope so.
For me to respect you and your opinion and to share that opinion and that respect, that's the key to the conversation. You've said that to be open-minded enough to have uncomfortable conversations.
Yes. We never grow without pain or struggle. We just that's not the way it's set up in life. But we don't grow without that.
That's right. Turning your head to the opportunity to have those conversations, you're only doing yourself a great injustice.
Yeah. You have to, and I know there are people that have been socialized to believe that, and we see it in our politics playing out today, that at the end of the day, the one thing that being an American has given me is privilege if you're a white American. No matter how bad things are, I'm supposed to get in line. Get in line for two people that are starving to death. There's one piece of bread left. One person's white, one person's Black. Black person was there first. White person comes behind him. In his mind, that's my bread. There's two of us. You should be favoring me. Why? I'm a white American. Yeah, but that's a mindset that I think, and I don't know if that's really racism. It doesn't mean people don't like Black people, they hate Black people. They just happen to think that I get this because of my birthright. And that's just not incorrect. Totally incorrect. And that's hard for people to unlearn. And that's why I say everything isn't racism. We call everything racism. Everything's not racism. It's cultural ignorance. It's implicit bias. It's explicit bias. Okay? It's just not understanding. It's I hate to say it like this, it's the media. You know, I don't know hip hop. My boys never had long dreads. Okay, never had to go down to the police department to get my guys out. But that's what people say. I don't know any drug dealers. We have a family. We have a small family, but I've never been to jail to visit or get anybody out of my family. We go from college educated to just regular working people. But a lot of people, the only images they get are from television, and those are so incorrect. They're designed to put in. I'm a TV guy. My business is designed to sell eyeballs. Okay, that's what it's done. The more people watch, and people like to watch. Oh, that's pretty cool. Then they, I remember meeting somebody, and I put my hand out. They tried to give me I said, man, I don't know how to shake hands like that. But their assumption. Now, some people could say that's racism. It's not. He was trying to be friendly. He thought that would make him. I'm like, dude, I don't dap, pump. I don't know what that is. But that's the only thing. It was the only he had, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up that point, because I used to watch the brothers when they would meet each other and do that that whole thing. When I served in the military, I spent a year in Vietnam, and as we would walk down the battalion street and everything. The brothers all did that, and all of a sudden, the white guys said, I want to kind of learn that. And so we'd start walking up and down the street, and every time we would pass black, white, brown, whatever, you do the handshake. Then when I got back home to America, number one, returning Vietnam veterans weren't really viewed as first-class citizens.
I remember those days. Yes.
Anymore. So we got to the point where if I was to approach a black brother and I'd give him that handshake, and there was somebody else looking at me, man, it would come down on me like a ton of bricks. What are you doing? Why are you doing that handshake with him? Well, because I served overseas with him. He watched my butt and I watched his butt. And it was something that people still had a problem understanding and accepting. And I couldn't understand, why can't you accept that?
Because that's for them.
The blinders.
For them, However, on the other hand, even though sometimes the dominant race says, well, that's for you people, if it turns out to be something that they define as pretty cool, they immediately adopt it, right down to walking around with your stupid pants down below your waist. You see young white kids doing that now. And all of a sudden, they're not hoodlums or gangsters. They're just kids. But when black kids are doing it, they were hoodlums, gangsters, ex-cons. But once the dominant population say, hey, that's pretty cool, all of a sudden it becomes okay. Black people died of drug overdoses with criminal drug abusers. Young white kids dragging into the same thing are caught up in an opiate epidemic.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see the young generation now maybe tear down some of those walls. I live in North Texas, and it is one of the fastest growing areas in the country. And we have a tremendous racial and ethnic diversity. In all of my years, and I'm about the same age as you are, I had never met a Muslim until I moved to North Texas 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I happened to meet the imam of the local mosque, and he says, if you really want to get to know a Muslim, sit down and have lunch with one and talk about it.
Yep.
And I did. And I realized that we had more in common than not.
Yep.
It's the same thing as we as a society, just open your hearts, open your minds, open your ability to talk with each other. And you will probably find that you'll walk away much richer then you started that conversation.
It's absolutely true. If you're not, and there's some black people the same way, man, I ain't got time to be messing with those white folks. We just sit down and have a conversation. Man, I ain't thinking about them white folks. They get on my damn nerves. I get that. I absolutely get that. We're double consciousness people. Okay.
Right.
We can't, we have to think about a decision as a regular person, then, well, but as a black man, what would I do? As opposed to also just thinking about what would I do as a person. But avoiding it, that's just, they go, Mike, you grew up like that. You're comfortable with white people. I just deal with them only on business only. That sounds like what other people that we call bigots say. I didn't grow up around them. I don't know them that well. I just stay to myself. So that we have some of the same built-in things that we have to get over. Sometimes people just defending themselves. They've had hurt feelings, disappointment. But it's kind of one of those things we have to go through, and it's difficult. I think one day, and like I said, I won't live to see it, but maybe my sons will, because you can't legislate who people love. And that's, I think, is going to be the only way that this goes away. My daughter-in-law is interracial, okay, white and Jamaican. My son is probably like 1/8 white, like most. Okay, and you look at my baby, my grandbaby, you don't know what he is. He's still very fair. He's got a nose that clearly looks black.
Yeah.
And there's other people around you, see families, and you're like Korean and white or Asian and white, Asian. Maybe one day people will realize that we're all the same. God just decided to have a little fun. He said, hey, man, I always say he started with white people first, and he went left to right. Okay, he started with Britain and England, and then and the more he went to the right, the more different features people had. But they were still made in the image and likeness of him. They still bred the same. A smile means the same in every culture. Why is that? That a smile, and there's not a culture that smile doesn't mean happiness.
Well,
because
you're right. And if you prick your finger, your blood is red. If I prick my finger, my blood is red.
Yeah.
And another thing someone once said to me is, what color is air? We all breathe it. We all share the same breath and all, but we don't know whether that air is white or black or yellow or brown. It's shared by all of us, and that's why our personalities and our backgrounds and everything should be shared with each other. And the book Everything Isn't Racism. The subtitle is 7 blame-free conversations that every leader should have. And I want you to take a minute or two and tell why this book is important for leaders to understand and to read.
Thank you. I have a 34-year-old who's in that up and coming. 15 years from now to be their world. He'll be 50 years old, and hopefully that'll be an old guy in a rocker. They have to know. They have to understand that the people that they're going to lead, okay, aren't the same people. Aren't going to look like the same workforce of people that I led, okay, or that you led in the military, or whatever. I'm blessed because my grandson has a lot of friends of every culture. Okay, but as a leader, there are going to be situations that you have to be aware of. Okay, you've got to. I'll give you an example of one of my best friends who's gone now. He got a project from a client. He's an engineer from a client that was an Indian client, and he had a couple of Indian engineers. He said, "I know. I'll put this gentleman and this gentleman. It's great for the client. Great. They're both great engineers. Came in on Monday. He said like on a Friday. Came on a Monday and he see one of the guys. I said, man, this guy is going to beat me in here." I will not work. Not and thought he was doing the right thing. Okay, so what's the difference? His ignorance. That's what it was. Different feel that way. Asians speak Spanish. Asians with the Spanish culture. Really mind blowing. But it's important to take the time.
Right.
Doesn't take that much
And
time.
if you're having trouble with it, then they're Asians, of Asian descent.
Yeah, and because I'm not certain if he was Chinese or Japanese, Mike, but he's an Asian guy. That's a perfectly comfortable way to say it. It's okay to admit that you don't know. You don't know, but take the time to get to learn. And I'm still learning.
Folks, again, go to the Facebook page and all. You got questions that you want to address, send them to Mike. He'll answer you. He's an upfront guy, and I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed sharing this conversation with you. I consider you now to be a friend and even a brother in arms, because
I'm good with that.
We share a lot of things in common. A few things we haven't even discussed in the show, but I wish you the very, very best of luck. Again, the book Everything Isn't Racism. I encourage you to get the book and read it, because not only read it, but share it and maybe make it the subject of a book club discussion.
Yes.
Because I think people will enjoy it and understand it, and you can get it on Amazon. It's a good read. It's an easy read, and I thank you for writing this book, Mike, because it's very opening and entertaining. And again, thank you for answering my request to come on the show and talk, because it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for asking me, folks. And let people know that they can also catch. We're down for right now, but there's 35 great episodes of Just Being Brothers.
Right, I didn't get to that. You and your brother, and it's aimed at the 55 and over community. And there's a lot of great information to be shared there. Yes.
Nothing is sacrosanct. We even attacked the Black church, which don't get me started on that. We attack, we look at Oprah. Nothing is off limits. We're just trying to have people look at something. And those two things are like the church. Oh, well, I have a thing about pastor worship. We do all of that. Nothing is off limits, but we do it respectfully. Just Being Brothers is our podcast. And thank you.
Just Being Brothers. Yep. Well, again, thank you very much. That'll do it for another episode of Just You and Me. I always end my show by saying, be yourself, because everyone else is already taken.
Amen. And that's the person you've had the most rehearsal being.
That's right. So go out and make it a great day. We'll see you again next week. And again, a very, very big thank you to someone you should know, Mike Easterling.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Someone you should know.